Welcome. My name is Casey Anderson. I'm the Technology Coordinator for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support. We're happy to bring you this short tutorial on creating accessible documents in Microsoft PowerPoint. It's my hope that if you have any questions or need help navigating accessibility on other programs, that you'd reach out to us so that we can assist you or point you in the direction of useful resources that address your specific concern. I'd also like to point out that the content of this video was originally included in our Web Accessibility webinar series. If you have questions about legislation related to web accessibility or the purpose of accessible design, the first webinar in that series is a valuable resource. It can be accessed via the ICSPS webpage at icsps.illinoisstate.edu, and it can be found under the Archives section under the name Electronic and Web Accessibility Webinar Series. So before we begin, I need to note that it is very difficult to create fully accessible PowerPoint presentations, largely because PowerPoint slides lack any embedded structural elements. However, there are several steps you can take to make sure that PowerPoints and exported PDF versions of those slideshows are as accessible as possible and provide a more positive user experience for individuals with disabilities making use of assistive technology. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at a few basic steps that should be taken on all PowerPoint documents, as well as several other features that have more contextual usability, or should be used by more advanced users. We'll also quickly examine features that can be used to self-assess document accessibility. So today, the things we're going to look at include the use of built-in slide layouts, the addition of alt text to all images and tables, use of accessibility checker before delivering content, and features including built-in list formatting, page numbering, the use of tables and charts, group complex images, touch-up reading order tools, and the conversion of PowerPoint documents to accessible PDFs. In order to go through this stuff, I'm going to actually have to get into the regular view of PowerPoint so that I can actually walk you through it. So let's start with built-in layouts. Built-in layouts are an essential element of accessible PowerPoint presentations because they provide structure tags that allow the documents to be converted into alternate formats. The blank nature of a PowerPoint slide makes these tags essential for navigation, logical structure, and reading order. When designing a slide, always, if possible, use built-in slide structures. This will save you a lot of time in formatting and guarantees slides have somewhat proper reading order. In order to create new slides, you can go to the Home tab, the Slides menu, and select New Slide. As you can see, there are many different slide structure options. Importantly, to be considered compliant, slides should use the Titles feature to aid with navigation and structure. Anything in a title pane should be designed as a title or a navigational feature, and these panes should not contain regular text and be used in the same way as regular content boxes. Title boxes include navigation tags that allow assistive technology to present a logical order to a slideshow and also provide a mean of bypassing content. So when you're selecting your titles, that's something to keep in, or your slide formats, that's something to keep in mind. The next thing we're going to look at is adding alternate text to images and tables and other visual representations of information. So adding alt text to images allows users with limited vision to access information expressed by the picture in a different format. In the first webinar in this series, we discussed what type of content should be expressed in alt text, and to summarize that discussion quickly, make sure you don't use file names as a description because they don't provide any meaning. Instead, create descriptions that communicate the information the picture is trying to express or indicate the way it is being used in a presentation. So in the case of logos, you'll also need to make sure that all text in those logos is represented. In order to add alt text to a picture, I'm going to use the ICSPS logo here as an example. You're going to click on that picture, then right-click, and if you see at the very bottom here, there's a Format Picture option. select that, and it'll open this side menu. Then you go to the third option over along the top, which is Size and Properties. It's a square box with a plus sign like symbol in the middle. Select that and go to the bottom, and you'll open your alt text menu. Here I've provided a description of the stylized lettering from ICSPS and made sure to include all the textual information that is presented. For another example of that, we'll look at this picture, and under this one I've tagged the picture using a description of how it's used in the presentation. So a picture used to identify alt text tagging process. You can also access this information, or that menu, by clicking on the picture, going to your top menu, under Picture Tools, selecting Format, then look for Picture Styles, and using the small drop-down menu icon here in the corner. That will bring up the same menu, and you can select it manually that way. The next thing we're going to look at is built-in list formatting. So on this page you can see I have a number of lists. When you attempt to create lists, it's really important to use this formatting tool because it includes structural elements that assist in navigation of lists. When you attempt to create lists that look similar without using these tools, they can create problems for assistive technology, including long pauses between words or improperly tagged reading order. To use the list feature, you can either turn it on initially and then type in your information, or select text and then manually turn it on and off to enable the feature. This feature can be found under the Home menu, as you can see here, then under Paragraph, and at the top left of the box here. So I've used the simple bullet points feature, but there are also drop-down letters and numbers. Again, it's important because using this feature inserts those tags, whereas just adding a number and then your text behind it leaves the structure tags out of these lists. In the same vein, you'll want to make sure that you use onboard features to create page numbers. The page numbering feature should also be used because it provides structural tags that allow assistive technology to use it for navigating the document quickly and ensures that page numbers are not disruptive to the flow of information. To add page numbers, you'll want to make sure that you don't simply add a text box and type in your number. To do this, or to use this feature, you'll go to the Insert menu under Text and then add slide number. That'll open up an option here, or a box here, and then you'll click slide number to select it. It'll show you in your preview up here where that will occur. And a quick note about this, it also allows you the option to add in headers and footers in these menus. You will want to make sure that if you use headers and footers in a PowerPoint document, you're only using them to present redundant information that is included on every slide. So for example, if I were to include ICSPS's website on every slide, I'd put it in the header and footer because it's not presented in a way that would interfere with assistive technology. So if you do use headers and footers, make sure that it's done with redundant information that's presented multiple times. The next thing we'll look at are the use of tables. So the accessibility of tables relies on assistive technology's ability to understand their logical format and the user's ability to determine the context of the information within them. In regard to structure, simple tables are accessible, complex tables are not. Simple tables are those that have independent sections for each cell. Complex tables use merged cells to display the same information, and this is often done to reduce the amount of data and text that needs to be entered. You can see on this page, I have an example of a simple table with individual sections for each data cell. And then on my inaccessible slide here, I have an example of a complex cell where merge is used to reduce the amount of information I have to enter. When you're creating the structural elements of this, you'll always want to ensure that you're using the onboard table creation tool to make your tables. So that can be found under the Insert menu, the Tables option, and then you'll actually, as you can see on the table or on the slide, select the cells that you'd need and they'll be auto-populated. You can then use it or move it around and place it within your slide. So while creating the structure of a table is very easy, in order to ensure that it's accessible, you have to provide context for the table, which relies on 3 structural issues: proper labels, and that has to include a header row, alt text, and then a title. The title's the simplest thing. You can see what I've done here is just use a text box and tabbed in the title into my, or written the title into my presentation. I've then ensured that the structure of the document and the reading order will present the title immediately before the table to provide context. To enable the labels in the header row, the first time you do this, you'll have to turn this on. It can be set as a default option, but I will show you how to do that right now. So what you'll do is you'll click on your table, go up to Table Tools, and then select the Design menu. Go all the way over to the left side, and you'll have Table Style Options, and your top box is Header Row. Now if you look at the table here, when I deselect it, there is a visual change, but importantly what's actually happening is a change in the structural elements. So with the header row, more context will be provided for the information in the table. In comparison, the inaccessible slide I've created does not have header rows turned on, so the coloration difference doesn't include those structural tags, which means I'm only providing this separate information visually, which makes the table inaccessible. All right. Finally, you can add alt text in the very same way we did with pictures by going to Format Shapes and opening the alt text box. Alt text for a table should include a summary and the purpose of the table in the context of the presentation. And this is important because this alt text will be the initial thing read by things like screen readers, and it allows users to determine whether it's worth tabbing all the way through all the information in the table to determine or they want to access that or not. So by providing a description, that will be presented, and then they can skip past it if the information is not relevant, or if they just want a basic understanding of the full context of the table. Chart accessibility is similar to table accessibility. A logical structure must be present and context must be provided. The logical structure of a chart is created by chart tools, and chart tools is the best way to ensure that your charts have tags necessary to make them accessible. Nearly all other forms of chart will be inaccessible and would require alternate content to be present in information. It is worth considering that when you're using charts, oftentimes even charts that are created with accessibility in mind, when exported to PDF, have elements that are not accessible. So that's just something to keep in mind. But in order to create a chart, you'll go to the Insert menu. Under Illustrations, select Chart, and then you'll be presented with all sorts of options that you can select. Once the chart's created, making it accessible requires you to provide necessary context. To begin with, you'll want to include important chart elements like titles and labels. That can be done by accessing the Chart Elements menu. So to do that, you'll right-click on your chart, and you can either select the plus sign here, which opens that menu, or you can go up to Chart Tools, Design, and on your far left here under Chart Layouts, you'll have Add Chart Elements. Once those are in, you can get in and click most of them and just make direct changes by typing into the chart, and that'll ensure that the structure is provided. You also must provide a detailed description of information communicated visually. In this example, I've added an explanatory note and tagged the reading order so the information is presented in proximity to the table. In a more complex table, or an instance where you don't want the information to be displayed on the side, you can also add information in an appendix or as a note. The Notes pane can be tricky to find. It's actually located at the bottom of the screen, down here under Notes. It can be opened with the Notes icon, and then it can be dragged into place, edited. There are all sorts of options for this pane. You can navigate it fairly simply, but it does provide a way to present a summary of your chart without interrupting the flow of a presentation. The next issue we're going to look at is complex image grouping. So, complex images are images that are grouped together and have an interconnected meaning. Common examples are flowcharts. These complex images must be grouped, and alt tags should be provided for the whole group. So, in this example, you can see that I have two different images. The first one here has been grouped together as a complex image. The other one here initially was simply 5 different single image boxes. For common forms of complex images, like flowcharts, PowerPoint has a Smart Art tool that allows you to create images and fill in the relevant information. The Smart Art tool can be found under Insert, Illustrations, and Smart Art. So as you can see here, I've selected the first type, the basic block list. However, there are a number of different options. PowerPoint really provides extensive options for your Smart Art graphics. In some cases, you may actually want to create more complex images and group them by yourself. Say if you're importing images and creating charts using those, or creating navigation type maps. In this case, you'd still need to group those images into one group and then provide an alt text that explains the whole use of the group. In order to do that, you'll hold down Shift and right-click on, and left-click on each individual image while holding Shift. Then, to group them, you'll continue to hold down Shift and left-click on the images, bringing up this side map. Under the Group option here, you'll have the ability to ungroup or group images, and I've actually pre-grouped this for creating this presentation, but it would give you the ability to group the images into one complex thing. And then you'll add alt text in the very same way as we've seen before. So you'd bring up the format, shape, or object, collect size and properties, and then put in your explanation of what the element is. So those are the processes that are used for creating accessible content. I'm now going to quickly show you how to check the accessibility of your presentation before you save it and deliver it. The first thing I want to show you is the check reading order. I can't overemphasize how important it is to check reading order on a PowerPoint document. No matter how well you've designed a PowerPoint slideshow, you'll almost always have a reading order tagged out of order, even if you use the default layout. We've talked about the importance of using built-in layouts and structure tags, and these tags create a logical structure, but if they're interpreted or presented in the wrong order, then the content is still inaccessible. So it is important to understand very quickly that when we talk about the term reading order, what we're referring to is the order in which document structural tags are presented to the user. The default mechanism in PowerPoint seems to be the order in which content is created. However, that simply isn't always the case, so luckily you can check the reading order yourself. In order to do this, you'll go to the home screen, then look under Drawings and select Arrange. Now once this drops down, you'll go all the way to the bottom and do selection pane. So over here on the pane, you can see that the information is all listed out as its elements, and when you click on each one, it'll highlight what it is. So the current reading order that is present on this inaccessible slide would be the page 10, or slide 10, then inaccessible formatting list, the student enrollment table, or chart, the table, then the title of the slide. So that's the exact opposite of the way it needs to be, but it corresponds to the order I created this slide in. So what you'd do is you'd simply drag these elements into the order, the correct order that you'd like. So now you can see I've rearranged the reading order, sort of. Rearranged the reading order in a way that makes the logical format of my my document correct. And you'll want to use this on just about every slide because, as I said, it is very difficult to create a slide with the correct reading order attached to it the first time around. So once that's done, there's another thing on here that you'll want to make sure you use, and that's the accessibility checker. To use the onboard accessibility checker before publishing your PowerPoint online, you will go to, or you'll be able to identify barriers in accessibility, and it will also present you with an option on how to fix. So in order to access that, you'll go into the File menu, and then under Info here, you'll go down to Check for Issues, and you can see there is a Check Accessibility option. When you do that, it will run through all of the potential barriers you have to accessibility and the order in which they're presented, and you can actually navigate directly through them. So you can see on this slide it says I have missing alt text in different areas, no header row specified on my table, and we've gone through why that's the case before, and then unclear hyperlink text. So this is designed to catch the most common barriers. Just because you fix all of these tools or everything found doesn't mean that you'll have a completely accessible slideshow, but it is very valuable because it also explains what the problem it's encountered is, and in certain cases how to fix it and why it must be fixed. So with that, once those are corrected, you'd have as accessible of a PowerPoint as possible. The very final thing I want to show you is how to save your PDF, or save your PowerPoint as a PDF that has structure tags attached, so that if you export it to a PDF file, all of that work isn't wasted by forgetting to include structural tags. So the way this is done is, again, you'll go into your File menu, go down to Save As, and then over to your area here. Now it's really important that from this point you click More Options and don't just save directly here. And then you go down and you select PDF, and then here you look at the Options page. This is where you'll be able to ensure that document structure tags for accessibility are turned on. So you want to make sure that check mark is clicked. And then when you save, those document structural elements should be exported with your presentation. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for using this service we've provided you. I do want to mention again, our website is icsps.illinoisstate.edu, and we are available on Facebook. We continually post things related to accessibility or American civil rights laws and career and technical education. So if you're interested in following us, you can always keep up to date of what we're doing. Then again, if you'd like to contact me with any questions or comments, my email is chande1@ilstu.edu, and the number is 438-1838. Thank you.